can follow along afterwards. So yeah, I just wanted to kick this off. So I had a kind of a basic agenda attached to this this conversation, and the idea here today is I just wanted to kick off the conversation with the product team to kind of align on some of the strategy going forward and how we can actually execute on this better feedback loop that we're trying to develop. So as a starting point, I just wanted to review quickly, like, what have we been doing and why is that not necessarily working the best way that it could be working? So there's basically three ways that we have like formalized way of doing feedback right now from the field. First thing I'll note is that before we get into these three things is that I think the big thing that the difference here is today is that and this is why I wanted John in this call, is that in the past, we have done things like top 10 lists of we've heard from customers, and kind of feeding the team that way through quarterly updates and things like that. The problem with that model is that unless we have like a pre-sales and post-sales top 10, the actual asks from the field are very, very different. Like I remember, when John and I were first kind of talking about this, a year or more ago, looking at the top 10 list from the TAMs that have come out of existing customers of what the customers needed, and also the exact same kind of feedback we've gotten from the CAB. So when we get the direct feedback from the product managers at the CAB, is that those issues, the things that people are wanting from existing customers, are vastly different from what prospective customers who are looking to adopt GitLab want to or need to be able to get over that barrier to actually look and purchase GitLab. So there's a big difference between those two things. So I started thinking a bit about this a bit more. And now that we have such a large, product management team across all the different stages, and then each stage is even broken out into smaller teams, that's a lot to change in the last year or two. So I think it would be good to try to formalize a better approach to this. One thing that I want to do is, so to give you some structure around that, if you haven't seen the issue, it's linked inside the document there. My concept here and what I've done in the past that seemed to work really well is appointing, some people on the customer success team that are, I would consider more experts in the particular stage. And so, people who have lots of experience in CI/CD or planning stages or security, all of that kind of stuff, they would be kind of the direct points of contact for getting this feedback to the product team. And so those folks that we've defined on our side would also be the same folks that we would say would be, ideal for, collecting feedback from the field and then getting that stuff up to product, right? And then vice versa. So the other part of this too is that, right now, the only way that the customer success team can go out and find out about, things that are in the roadmap or what's coming in the next releases is the way that everyone else finds out about that. And it's just through, here's what's coming, here's what actually dropped in this release. Now we go and take that and say, okay, now let's figure out how we demo this. How do we talk to customers about this? What the value of this for the customer? So we have to do a lot of that parsing on our side as well. Ideally, we'd have a feedback loop going the other direction there too, where, the product manager is working directly with the point of contact and customer assessing. Here's what's coming out in this release. Here's why we did this. Here's the problems that it solves. And so that we have a better understanding of the direction that product's doing versus us trying to interpret that and doing our own thing in the field and seeing how that goes. Not always directly aligned. I think we do an okay job of that, but it's not consistent across the board. So a lot of times we're not up to speed on what's changing and what's what the longer term vision of those features might be. So ideally, this might look like something where we have a monthly cadence where we've got our team on customer success that's going to meet with each product manager. And before that, the key here is that the way we do it now is taking Salesforce links, posting them inside the issues, providing some details of why they want that. That's all good, but really, I think it would be much more valuable for the product team. And this is what I want to get you guys' opinion on is if we can identify the trends of what things we see in the field and why they're getting asked and what they're trying to solve, I think that's going to be a lot better for product than saying they need this feature because they asked for this feature and that's part of the requirements. That's okay, but really, I think we could solve things in a different way than just, hey, we heard you need this direct integration with Vault, for example. But really the underlying story is we need a better way of managing external variables, right? So like that's the broader theme story around that, not just we need Vault integration. That's one piece of it. That's one way we could go, but I would rather product make that decision. And because, it makes more sense, right? We don't need to just say, hey, go build this feature. It's like, no, here's the theme that we're seeing across the field and problems that we can't solve very easily right now. We need a solution for that. And we can take that back to the customer and explain to them why we chose that route. And so I think that would be a much easier way to do that if we collected feedback from the field and said, these 10 customers had requests that were in this managed space, for example, and they all revolve around this particular type of problem. And so instead of direct point, we have themes, right? So the idea there is that we would be able to collect that, work with the product management team to provide that feedback on a regular cadence of, I think monthly makes sense right now, just given how many people would be involved and not trying to put in a bunch of burden and overhead, and enough time for us to collect new changes. Because I think the one thing we're seeing in the field too is like, look, we're trying to push Ultimate, we're trying to get into larger enterprise deals. There's a lot more that goes into those deals than what we know, because we just haven't been in that space of how we handle compliance, how we handle certain things in regulated industries. And so I think we need to hear that feedback and take that, extract it out, and give it to product in a more meaningful way. So that's kind of the underlying gist of what I'm trying to solve here, and kind of the way I'm thinking about approaching this. Open it up, just some feedback on that for now.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things, maybe even the options we can do is create like an issue template that's really like a use case reporting from the field, where we can say, hey, I was with this Salesforce Link customer. Here's the use case they described. This is why it's valuable. It's a problem that they're trying to solve. And then, because one, that allows us to actually have it in a format we can have a discussion on in Tool. Totally. We can then assign that issue to like feature epics we have open as like customer research validation, that we say, hey, here's the 15 field reports that talk about this similar use case, and it all rolls up to this item we're trying to build.
Right.
And then the other side of that is, we are also on the product side, are being encouraged to map opportunities and the stuff we're working on to actual value that could be produced. And then, of course, that gets complicated, right? Like you call it out as, okay, cool. Is this customer interested in this? Is there one person that's interested in this on that side? Or is it, hey, this is actually keeping them from expanding into an Ultimate agreement or expanding into a new stage? Like those are the big details that we need to be able to quantify. And actually, when we say, why are you doing this? We can then go, hey, here's the 4 instances of this. Like there are 4 major customers who can't move to an Ultimate, or who would move to Ultimate if we could solve this problem through here. Like that's the quantifiable data we need to have to be able to make some better decisions. And so I think we have all this information disparate through all kinds of different processes.
That's
we
right.
just put it in the right spot.
And I even look at like some of the issues that have like tons and tons of Salesforce links in them of like, we need this, we need this, we need this, but they're all disconnected. And the reason why they need that is a lot different than what you might be gathering from just that issue itself. And so I think that distilling that out into something more meaningful is the valuable part. I mean, I can give you a really good example of this actually that just happened. Was, I've been hearing a lot in the field around our container registry that we need immutable tags, right? Because people rely on immutable tags for deployments because they're used to that as part of Artifactory. They're used to that as part of AWS's service for that as well. But the reason why all those companies have chosen to go that route is because they don't know what the release process looks like, because they're not part of the entire development cycle. So when I started talking to the product managers about this, we said, well, actually, we can do that. We can solve this problem that they want these immutable tags for by attaching that container image directly to the bill of materials. And I'm like, actually, that's even a better solution than immutable tags. But we've been asked for immutable tags a million times, but it's because that's all they know, right? And so I think that if we can take that information and say, look, they need a way that they can always rely on the ability to know exactly what container was released with exactly what release that is, so that they can do, audit trails, but also if they need to roll back, they know what container image to use for that. And it's like, okay, that sounds like immutable tags, but actually in our world, if people are using releases, that's a better place for that to live than tags themselves, because there would be reasons why you might want to override a tag in some cases, but you couldn't do that if you had that model. So I think that this kind of proved out some of this thinking of like, no, we need to understand the themes of what they're trying to do, not what they're asking for. And I think right now we're getting a lot of, here's what they're asking for, go do it, right? And that's not super valuable to your team. So I think that this is, I think the hard part of this is determining, should this be at the product group level, like the product, I forget what stage group managers, should it roll up to like that level, or should we get granular into each? Because there's so many different stages now. That would mean we need a lot of people on the CS.
No, I think we start a little higher up, So one of the more difficult parts about how we just structure price and sell the product is like people don't buy features, they buy solutions to use cases.
Exactly.
And oftentimes those use cases are going to span categories and groups, right? So like Gabe's project management, I'm portfolio management. I can't do any of this stuff I need to do unless we have it at the project management level, right? And so we end up having to collaborate on everything so that we can understand exactly how do we build things that can aggregate up, but also solve the larger use cases.
Exactly.
Individual disparate teams that are building something. So I think keeping it at that level makes sense because that allows the PMs of them kind of take that and self-serve it down into the proper PMs and groups and categories.
Yeah, I think that will like make it a little less barrier for us on our side because we'd just be like 10 people,
And it keeps you're also then serving at a larger like service area, right? Because then if we're delivering it at that, all the PMs in that area will be exposed to it, so we all can consume it as needed instead of it being more granular than
Okay, cool. And then from a cadence standpoint, does monthly seems right to me. It could be, I don't think any shorter than that makes sense because I think again we want to get the themes, and I think it takes some time to get that, and also for the team to distill it out. So that's a good starting place in monthly and see how that goes.
I agree. Monthly sounds good to start. Yeah.
Okay. And then, other thoughts on like what we would want to, so before we jump to the other side of this of like, I think the other piece of this is getting our feedback back to, the CS team on, why we're doing things and maybe providing us a little more than what we can get out of just looking at the release notes and looking at the roadmap and in theory there. But I think there's some more to that. Like, maybe it's the PM team provides a quick demo to the experts on the CS side for that, and then we can take that and then roll it out to the entire team. Not sure there, but that's the other part of this that I want to also solve is like, I think we are looking for a little bit more of that from the PM team. That's more that's more direct feedback rather than us figuring it out ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know that like a lot of the stuff you guys are doing now for releases, you have videos for usually like small quick demos. Is that part of like, is that just some teams are doing that, or is that process now? I don't know that part. It's
becoming process, right? So like we're actually starting to build that into kind of low level OKRs to like record these quick demos and speed runs so that there's more of them. So you'll see that become more prevalent over the next quarter and two.
Okay, cool. I mean, that could be enough. I just want to make sure that I think that's the key piece there is a lot of times we read these and we're like, well, how does this really play out in a demoing scenario, for example, or how does this play out in a conversation about this topic? How do we present that value and our vision of that value as it goes, from minimal to, lovable stages?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just going to take a look at, so right now, if we look at the group stage, is the group stages like literally like the 10 stages? There's one person that oversees all of those, or one of each rather. Is that how that works right now? Is it broken out that way?
I think that's what we're getting at. They're hiring like group product managers to run each one. So like we have a plan group product manager. But I don't know if we have that across the board yet, but.
Okay. I guess in the places we don't, we can just define that and then just, pick whoever wants to be the DRI for that stage can be that until we have those, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Any other considerations, thoughts, things that you guys would want from product that could make this better, easier? So I think we've defined we need to have like a template of some sort for this feedback for each one of these. I don't know if should that live just as part of GitLab, the project itself, or should we do that in a different project? Thoughts on that?
So I think we want to be able to keep it wherever we can assign it to epics that we'd be working through. So I think
so as long as it's part of the GitLab org group, should be a separate project then. Yeah, I guess that's probably. Because I'm thinking the only thing that I would want to be cautious about is that it would be worthwhile for us to be able to talk about actual customers in this case. Yeah. So I think we can you can have a private group as part of GitLab org that still can roll up the epics and the issues can still roll up to, you can still like link those. You just wouldn't be visible if you didn't have access to see that particular project, right? That's how that works.
Yeah, we
you
can
also just make them confidential.
Yeah, make them confidential
Oh
issues.
yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. We can make them confidential. That might be a better.
And we should have confidential epics soon too, so
Sweet.
we can actually group them a little better.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think one of the things that would be helpful too. I don't know if this is like a training thing or a mindset thing, but like salespeople, they focus on like features and what do you need, like what use cases do you need to support. But like a lot of times, like we get feature requests and not the use case part, and even less frequently the what is the customer trying to accomplish, like
exactly
how are they trying to make progress within their organization, within whatever they're trying to do. So then we get into this thing where everybody's like, oh, we need this feature that's in Jira, where I don't think it's the right thing to do, but like that's what everybody asks, and we're not getting better feedback on what they're trying to actually accomplish. And so I think the more that we can train folks to think in terms of like, how is this prospect or this customer trying to make progress, and like, how can we help them do that? And not even talk about solutions or features.
For sure.
That's Brian, I think we need to start getting better in CS of using that template that I linked in the agenda doc there. Whenever I have feedback to put in an issue, I go to that link. I have a bookmarked. I just cut and paste it into an issue and fill out the fields as needed.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's been a couple times where like I had a rep drop like the same Salesforce link in like 6 issues. And then I went in and said, okay, cool, but like I need basically the questions you have in that template. And then the customer came in and was like, well, if you don't get it, here you go. I was like, well, all right, now this is awkward because I've never talked to him. Like, I'm just looking so we can prioritize. So I like that format a lot.
Yeah, Yob was just tired of seeing Salesforce links just posted everywhere without context. I think you're right. I think use case, why they're interested, actually like the current solution for the problem. How are they currently working around that and making it work for them? Maybe that'll give us some insight as to how to fix this for them. So priority is important, all that kind of stuff.
So I think we need to be doing that, but we also need to be aggregating these into a single place where we can talk about that to the group leaders. Because I think that's the key here is like, even if we did that of like, here's the customer, here's their problem, here's how they get around that, here's what they're trying to do. If we can see 10 of those and we can say, okay, we can create one feature that's going to hit 9 of these, that's going to be better than us trying to distill out each one of those, right? Okay.
And sorry, John, does my response about the Periscope stuff, does that help clarify what we were talking about? Like we're all using it, but there's a lot in there, and especially like I've only been here about 6 months. So getting in there and trying to write my own views there's a lot in there. And especially like verifying I'm doing it right and I'm not misrepresenting something. So that's all I was calling out about enablement there. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw it, Josh Lambert posted sort of a link of like all issues that had links, and then you could sort the entire shit and caboodle by like by ARR kind of thing, right? But I suspect as a group or stage manager, you definitely want to focus down to what's part of your group. So yeah, maybe I naively assumed everybody was just like using Periscope and looking at it on a regular basis and sort of had great insight into this, but maybe that was just a pipe dream for me there.
Yeah, there's a lot of onboarding for it right now.
So, yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
When you post a link right now to a customer, if you post the account or the opportunity, does it get pulled in, or is it just the opportunity or just the account? Because I've seen a mix of both. And because like, depending on who links it, they don't, they're just like, oh, I'm going to link this customer because they want me to link the customer, but really maybe they should be linking the opportunity.
I know guaranteed if you link a customer account, it's scraped by Periscope and that's used. I can't speak to the opportunity. Josh Lambert would probably know best.
We should find that out because I've seen mixes of both. And so there could be that we're not even reporting half of the things or, some percentage, right?
Yeah, I got to run, but I'll take the action item to ping Josh about that.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thanks, guys. I got to go. Talk to you later.
Okay, thanks. Okay. And so then in terms of next steps, I think what I'm going to do, so from my side of things, it's about identifying, who we think is going to be the best person or people. I'm not sure yet from our side if we want to do 1 year. I mean, because I think there is a little difference in like European and the US based, or even everywhere outside of the US based, that we have different kind of feedback coming back. There's, it might be worthwhile having 2 on our side for each. I'm not sure. But it's pretty obvious who it would be on the product management side, right? I mean, other than the pages that don't have group, which I'll have to go and look who doesn't have groups yet, and then we'll have to determine inside that who would be the person that would be.
Yeah, we'll just bring this up at a product meeting next week and say, hey, like we need volunteers for DRIs for each section, and we'll just go.
Okay, that works too. Yeah.
So we can handle that. If you guys can get SAs or whatever we want, and however we put it in that issue, and then. Yeah, I think maybe then the next step would just be like just figuring out what we need and want in that template and get it added, which.
Yep. Okay. And then I also see that in this issue, actually you're assigned to this, flagging early adopters willing to look at new features. I suppose that's what that means there.
Yeah, I think that'd be part of it. I think if like, you get a feedback and they're like, hey, like here's this problem we have. It's super important. Like I'd be willing to, but I think actually maybe we need to clarify or to bring this up a level. I think it'd even be more useful. It's like, I'm willing to interact with product about finding the right solution for this, because then that allows us to say like, hey, you want to drop a customer interview so we can use validation. Hey, we've got some wireframes. You want to give us some feedback? It kind of gives us that opportunity to start building a list of people who we can then say, these are the customers we're collaborating on to make this, to get this right. Which, recruiting for that kind of stuff is very difficult, especially because it's basically split between recruiting, UX, and PMs to like solve that problem. So having something that just says like, here's a list of people who could be willing to talk, that enables us to then work with anybody on your end or in sales to say like, hey, I need to talk to this person because of this use case they said they're interested in. We want to show them some high fidelity wireframes to just double check on a solution validation. So I think I'll clean up that issue a little bit to kind of state that a little more. And then we can, I can spin up an MR for a new issue template and we can just work on it as a group, or we can put it in the doc. I don't know, however you want to proceed with that.
Yep, that makes sense. So with that, I think a lot of times when customers, a lot of customers or prospects are willing to have these conversations if they're, far enough down the path of saying this is the direction we're going to go. I think you'll have more mileage with existing customers than you would prospects, because they're not going to do that unless they're pretty serious, right?
Agreed.
I think what the key here would be is that I think we should only do that if we're in a place where we're going to actually, make progress on that feature in the next X amount of time. I don't know what that is, because I think the key there is that what will entice customers is like, hey, if we can get this out in 3 releases, if you help us now, would that be valuable to you? So that we can kind of get them to be more excited about the prospect of like, we know if we help them now, then in 3 months we can start our migration or something like that, right? It's kind of
I agree. I think that's how it is. Like, hey, okay, like if we get multiple of these use cases, that helps us get through the problem validation stage, which is like, this is something worth solving. Some customer conversations in that phase are helpful, but really once we understand and know the problem so well that we can come up with a solution proposal, that's when they say, hey, we're working to do this.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Yeah. So we've got to walk into it that way. So I think that's a good call out though.
So let's just make sure that this part of it is kind of the second part of this feedback is like, here's all our feedback of what we need to do in the future. When we're ready to make progress on one of these, then that's our flag to go back to the customer and say, hey, products they're going to focus on this. Can we work with you on it? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah. And we can codify that in the template.
Perfect. Okay, take that note. Anything else? I mean, I think this is a pretty good starting place here. I don't have too large of a group here, but I think, when is your next product meeting that you'd be able to do this?
Let's look at the calendar. Usually, unless we have got one Tuesday morning. So.
Is that something I can join? Just
yeah, we can get you to come in and we can talk about it. Yeah.
Tuesday morning might be tricky, but customer stuff. But we'll see. What time is it at?
8 a.m. Mountain Time.
9, 10. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, add me to that, and I'll see if I can make it. If not, then I can just, it's fine. We don't need to. I just would be good to kind of collect some feedback if anyone had any thoughts there.
I also added a link to. It'd be cool if we could. Sales folks, depending on who it is, might have a harder time thinking in this way. But as we're talking about, like, there are all these things, these needs, and can we build one solution that satisfies the most? Like, a helpful way to do that is by like thinking in terms of job stories. So I just dropped a link in there that maybe we could include in the handbook or wherever we're specifying a template saying like, hey, if you can do this, it provides way more context and like super helpful in terms of understanding what somebody's really trying to accomplish. So
yeah, and definitely anyone who would be a DRI from the CS team would be able to do that. Like, the salespeople probably won't, but I think the idea here is that we're collecting the feedback from the sales. We're first of all, we're working with most of them all. If they're in the enterprise or mid-market, we're going to be working with them directly, so we hear that same stuff they do. But I think, the CS team should definitely be doing it in context of that. Like, I need to, I need to be able to have a better way to manage variables, or something, whatever that may be, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, let's just, I guess, clarify next steps. I just added you to that meeting. Here, I'm just gonna put this in here because otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll spin up that template MR. I'll kind of just stub one out and we can collaborate on it. Gabe, I'll probably pick on you to vet as well. I think, yeah, it's not a surprise. So I got you that. We'll do that. I'll add it to the agenda for the product meeting and just talk about getting DRIs from the product side. Cool. I think that's all right.
Okay. Yep. I think that's good next steps there, and then we'll work on it from there. I'll add some notes around from what we had here inside the issue of, cadence and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool.
Anything else, Gabe? Anything from your side?
Nope. Good.
Cool.
Sweet. Then we'll call it early. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Like it. Thanks. Bye.